Welcome along to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Steve, how's your week? Strong picks for the live show, and a sweep, wasn't it, last week for your good self? You're just slightly in the red when it comes to your P&L this season. How are you? Well done last week.
Well, good day to you, Dan and James. It was a clean sweep of my main picks. The SGP was one goal from hitting an 8-1 winner, so I suppose for once I can actually be reasonably happy. I mean, I can't ask for too much more. Most of the leans won as well, and you're right. There's been a lot of live show winners, so at the minute, I feel like in a pretty good phase. Hopefully, can continue it, and I managed to claw back that loss to effectively level, bar the odd decimal place.
That's classic betters, isn't it? That how have you done for the day? Bat levels for the day. That's what people say on the racetrack every single day.
Keep it simple, Dan. You got to keep it simple. Don't need to overcomplicate anything. But doing quite well.
Good stuff. I don't know about you, James. January does seem busier. We usually have a little bit of a lull. Maybe I'm taking a bit more note of various cup competitions. There's an awful lot of streaming on the Bet Rivers site when it comes to like the Dutch Cup and the Belgian Cup. So we advertise that quite a bit. But obviously with Champions League returning as well, January does feel different this time around, doesn't it?
Definitely busier, Dan. We've had the Super Cups that we've mentioned. In some countries, it's been more than one game for the Super Cup, and then we've had domestic cup competitions this week, and the Champions League back next week. So, it's definitely a busier January than we've had certainly in some years in the past. And I think the Champions League starting next week is really important because for the first time in January, we might see rotation in some of the league matches this weekend. Keep an eye on it. Look at the teams and who they're playing in the Champions League next week if they're in that competition, and it might just affect some of the team news, I think, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, that's interesting, and there's some big teams that are, I don't know, am I over-egging it to say they're in trouble in the Champions League? Probably, but we'll get to them anyway over the course of the show. Got some interesting angles for the boys, as per usual. Profit and loss on screen for you, obviously show massively in profit, and Steve knocking on the door, some brilliant selections from the boys over the course of the season. Get your comments in via YouTube. Bit of an upswing last weekend, probably because there was no Premier League football. But look, anything European, Steve, James, myself are on hand to answer your queries, questions. If you're tailing us or fading us, let us know. A couple of things to subscribe to if you haven't already. If you're just finding our channel for the first time, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Dead easy to do that. Dead easy to hit the like button, of course. And we've got the Betting Weekly newsletter. Head to bettingweeklystudios.com for details. Pops into your inbox pretty much every Monday. Is it every Monday, Steve? It is every Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, every Monday it should be into your inbox. If you don't see it, then do check your spam folders and things like that, because it will be there.
And one thing that I would say about the Monday the newsletter, and I was speaking to Will White about this, just picking his brains about getting on and betting football. He says one thing you've got to be early with your bets. Get your bets on early. And what we've seen with a Monday play, Steve, James, Jack and Nigel and co, they put up some bets for sort of the weekend and later on in the midweek on a Monday, and the prices sometimes go. So get in early, get that newsletter. You are very much ahead of the curve if you do that. Let's start our roundup of the European football show. We're going to kick off in Italy, and some fantastic games in Saturday. We're a little bit Saturday heavy with our picks this week, but in Italy, we've got some brilliant football matches. First of all, we're going to talk about Juventus against Milan, which is Saturday midday. Juve are plus 120, Milan plus 240 here, the draw plus 215. A 180th Serie A meeting between the pair. Juve have only won one of their last 9. They are still unbeaten this season in Serie A, but incredibly, they are only in 5th position at the moment. 7 wins, 13 draws. James, you've got your 2-unit play on this one. Is it on the draw? Should we just back the draw when it comes to Juve games here? What's your 2-unit?
I think a lot of people will be backing the draw blindly on Juventus, Dan, because of their record. But no, it's not on the draw. I'm backing Milan here on the Asian handicap. So Milan are the clear underdogs in this game. They're plus 240 to get the win, and that means you've got a great chance to back them at big odds on the Asian handicap. So the pick is Milan plus 0.25 goal start on the Asian handicap. which is available at minus 114. So I think it's a great price because you have both a Milan win and a draw paying out for you if with this pick. I said a couple of shows ago, Dan, I think the change of manager at Milan effectively restarts their season. And I do stand by that. They changed the manager end of December. They appointed Sergio Conceição. They have looked a lot better since that change. We saw them obviously win the Super Cup. They had two wins to get that trophy, beat Juventus in that competition. They've had a win and a draw in Serie since. They probably should have won the game that they drew against Cagliari. So times are looking much better for me at Milan. They always had more ability, I think, than they were showing in the first half of the season under Paulo Fonseca. Lots of players not quite playing to their level. I think that all changes now, and I think we're seeing the first signs of it. So I just don't understand why Juventus is such a short price here. They're plus 120 to win. This is a side that have only won 3 out of their 10 home matches. You know, the draws that they've had is famous now. They're the team in Europe that are drawing almost every week, it feels. So I don't really think there's any way to justify Juventus's short odds price. Favourites, you can maybe say they should be favourites because they're at home, but plus 120 to win when they've only won 3 out of 10 at home, I just don't see it really. And on Milan away from home, they've only lost 1 of their last 5 away from home. That was against Atalanta, who are obviously a better side. Certainly so far this season than Juventus. So I'm fairly confident this can be, maybe a Milan win. I did have a look at this for my hot dog pick. Plus 240 would have made it a hot dog pick. But in the end, I went slightly more conservative in terms of the choice. Milan plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap. But it is my 2-unit play. I am very confident that Milan have got enough here to at least avoid defeat. And I think the price, minus 114 is a good price. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets a bit shorter before kickoff.
Interesting. We're playing the outsider effectively here. Juve against Milan. We like Milan here. Perugia, incidentally, did a little bit of research into Juve's unbeaten run. In the 78-79 season, they went the whole season unbeaten in Serie A, but didn't win the title. They finished second. They drew 19 of 30 games with 11 wins. I mean, Juve could end up being unbeaten invincibles, Steve, but not even qualifying for the Champions League the way they're going. You've got a lean on this one, which is a little bit, I think, following on from your lean in the Turin derby from last week, which was a push. But here, there's a little bit more wriggle room.
Well, I'm going under 2.5 goals at minus 139. I just think there is a lot of history between these two teams. The meeting is one of those that neither team ever really wants to lose, I don't think. We could see quite a few cards, things like that, start-stop affair. And, Juventus haven't actually kept a clean sheet in a while. But the 0-0 detector is slightly bleeping for me here. I just think the new manager at Milan, Conceição, I've followed him for several years, and I think his natural way is just to have quite well-organised teams. I don't want to call him a defensive manager. I just think he's very good tactically. So I think he'll snuff out Juventus. To be honest, James's 2-unit play I think is actually a better bet. The plus a quarter of a goal. I don't really see Juventus winning the game. They just don't have enough ruthlessness about them. But I mean, the Super Cup meeting recently was 2-1 to Milan, and that was just a couple of weeks ago. But I think that is a different type of game to a league match. The stakes are quite high. It's quite obvious both teams are fighting for the final Champions League position. I think the top 3 spots look locked up. They might even get a 5th place, again, Italy, depending on the coefficient. So, every point matters. And I think both teams, the draw's got every chance, hasn't it, again? But I see quite a tight game. 7 of the last 9 meetings have gone under 2.5 goals. Since COVID times, 4 0-0s. And honestly, if this one did end 0-0, I wouldn't be surprised again.
Speaking of the 3 teams that potentially have got the Champions League spots locked up, we're talking Inter, Napoli and Atalanta here. Inter are Scudetto favourites at minus 190. Just lengthened ever so slightly after that draw against Bologna in midweek. Napoli plus 225, Atalanta plus 500. Atalanta against Napoli in Bergamo on Saturday night locally, 2:45 Eastern stateside. Atalanta are plus 120 favourites here. Napoli plus 225. But Gasparini's side, James, without winning 4 in all competitions, they've drawn their last 3 in Serie. I'm getting slightly concerned about my futures bet on Atalanta. You've always been pretty sweet on Napoli and suggested at plus 300, plus 350, plus 400 when they've drifted out. They're always worth betting. Where they're shorter now, and you're staying on this Napoli train for your 1U play. They've been in great form, of course.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Napoli both long term, Dan, and also this weekend. It's very similar to my pick on Milan. It's actually the same bet. I'm back in Napoli here on the Asian handicap with a plus 0.25 goal start, minus 113, almost the same price as Milan are with this market away to Juventus. So very similar thinking. The prices here for me are not quite right. I understand Atalanta being the favourites because they are the home side. There's obviously very little to pick between Atalanta and Napoli in the league table, but plus 120 on Atalanta and plus 225 on Napoli. For me, you can only really side with Napoli here because, number one, as I've said, there's very little between them in the league table anyway. Number two, you've mentioned, Dan, the form of Atalanta has slipped. It is a concern. They're not going into this game with any real form or confidence. Napoli are. They've won their last 5. They've won their last 3-0. They're playing some really good football. They've got the best defence in the division, and that's really shown in recent weeks. And on top of all of that, Napoli have got the best away record in the division over the course of the season. So we've seen that many times. Most of my plays on Napoli this season have been when they've been away from home. Just seems to suit the way they play. They're very comfortable in away games. They're very confident on the break. And I don't see any reason really why this game wouldn't follow that pattern. So doesn't necessarily mean Napoli will win it. They're obviously facing a good side here. Atalanta do have a good home record generally this season, so it's a tough game for Napoli. But it's all about the prices for me because there's a great big disparity between Atalanta and Napoli in the prices at the moment. And what that does is it throws up these ways of backing Napoli on different markets. I'm going with the Asian handicap, plus 0.25 goal start. You could also look at Napoli tie no bet. I think that's available at plus 132. And I also looked at this as a potential hot dog pick if you're feeling really confident. Napoli plus 225 to win it. But I think the smart way to play is to back Napoli to get something from the game, avoid defeat. And with the Asian handicap pick, then that's what you're doing. So, yeah, my 1-unit play is Napoli plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap. And at the moment, it's minus 113.
We are fading the favourites in the 2 big games in Italy on Saturday. We've got a 1-unit play from Steve when it comes to the action in Germany on Saturday as well. And we talk about Napoli having a very good defensive record. They've only conceded 12, which is the joint best across the big 5 leagues in Europe, along with Atletico Madrid. No real surprise there. In third place, though, maybe a bit of a surprise, is Bayern, who have only conceded 13. They take on Wolfsburg this Saturday, 9:30 a.m. I think the kickoff time. Just check that with Bet Rivers site. Bayern minus 715 here, Steve. Wolfsburg a 14-1. The draw around about 7s, 8s. Bayern a 6 from 6 when minus 500 or shorter. There's no value there. And you've moved away from even looking at sort of 2-0s and Asian lines with Bayern. What's the 1-unit play here? What's the angle in with Vincent Kompany's side?
Well, I'm thinking this is going to be quite a big over match, Dan. So I'm going to take over 3.75 goals at, it's actually minus 110 now. I mean, here's a good question for you. Which teams had the most over 3.5 goal games in the Bundesliga this season?
Well, I presume it's Bayern.
Well, it's actually Wolfsburg, who are obviously involved in this matchup. And you've got Ralph Hasenhüttl in charge here. And, I mean, for those who followed him at Southampton, Leipzig back in the day, we know what sort of manager he is. He has a go. You know, in his Saints days, there were 3 or 4 really big beatings, weren't they? When his system goes wrong, it can go badly wrong. Could that sort of happen here? Maybe it could, because Bayern have had some huge wins at times this season. Usually when you're backing an over, the first question you're asking yourself is, you know, can both teams contribute? And you normally would answer yes if you are taking the over. And I do actually think Wolfsburg can score here. But if they didn't, Bayern are very capable of covering this goal line all by themselves. Like, they are absolutely rampant at the minute. they have the occasional close, tight win away from home, usually on the back of an international break or something like that. But I mean, they roared back into life in midweek. Easy win against Hoffenheim. I think it was 5-0. And I mean, their defensive numbers are very impressive, mostly because they just don't allow the opposition to have the ball much. Wolfsburg are the sort of team I think that can maybe score on them, though, because, I mean, we saw they actually met, I think it was the first game of the season, and it was a 3-2 win for Bayern. Wolfsburg will have a go. That's the way Hasenhüttl plays. He's not just going to come here and park the bus. They are the biggest overachieving team in their expected goals metrics, nearly a 10-goal overachievement, right? So a lot of people will say that's going to regress, etc., etc. That's the sort of team that might do well against Bayern, though, because they've got players who can score low XG goals, like a long shot or something, like a bit of trickery, a bit of something special. So I think that's the sort of team actually can give Bayern a bloody nose, potentially. I mean, I don't actually think they'll get close. I think Bayern will win well. But, I mean, this goal line just didn't look high enough. I thought it might be... I actually thought the main Asian line would be 4. I mean, over 3.5 goals. For those who can't take the 3.75, just take the straight over 3.5 at -141. Nearly had it as my 2-unit play, actually, because I just think it's a match. It's a concoction of goals, potentially. Bayern have got a Champions League match coming up, but it's only against Feyenoord. I don't think that's the sort of game which is going to distract them too much. Leverkusen are breathing down my neck, so I don't think there's going to be any let-up from Bayern München here. And Wolfsburg are going great guns. They're in great form. No pressure on them. No reason why Hasenhüttl should just suddenly change anything. I think we could see like a 3-1-4-1 Bayern win. And I do like for my 1-unit play over 3.75 Asian goals at -110.
Just a couple of Saturday leans from you, Steve, in the Bundesliga here. Really like the first one. Holstein Kiel, who to me have just thrown caution to the wind recently. They're transformed. What's the play? This is a good one for me. It's one of my favourites of the weekend.
Yeah, this probably should be a pick, shouldn't it, actually? I don't know what I could have substituted it in for, though. I like the Holstein Kiel team total goals over 1.5 at +123. Backed it on the live show midweek against Dortmund. It was +180. And, okay, the odds have shortened, but this shouldn't be plus money against home to Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim are in trouble. Like, where's this coming from?
They've got injury issues, I think, as well, haven't they?
Always have them, though, for the last 5 or 6 years. But they're not even been unlucky or anything. Hoffenheim legitimately deserve to be where they are. They're really struggling. They've obviously got Europa League action coming up soon as well. And, I mean, Kiel, I've got to be honest, I never saw this resurgence. They've won 2 of their last 3 games. I mean, I was against them before Christmas and they battered Augsburg 5-1. It was a favourable time to face Dortmund. Maybe it's a favourable time to face Hoffenheim now as well. But do you know what Holstein Kiel are doing? And I'll give them credit for this. It's quite clear they are saying attack is the best form of defence. They can't defend, so they're giving it a good go. They're going down swinging, and fair play to them. I honestly thought they were the worst team in the Bundesliga. I thought they were worse than Bochum. I thought they'd end up finishing rock bottom. They still might do, but they're giving it a good go. This shouldn't be plus money, should it? For them to score 2 or more, even if they lose the game. I think Holstein Kiel can definitely... By the way, Holstein Kiel have scored 2 or more goals on 7 occasions this season, and recently, obviously, a massive upturn in goals for them.
Yeah, this is borderline pick, isn't it, really? If Steve had another pick, I sense this might be it. Watch out for Phil Harris, or Phil Harris, not quite sure I pronounce his surname. Phil Harris to me, 5 in his last 3, 7 in 10, playing 4-tier football last season, plus 225 anytime goal scorer. Speaking of Bochum, who you just give me a dig in the ribs about, you've got a lean in their game against Leipzig. Quickly on this one. Unless it's positive for Bochum, then you can have 5 minutes.
Yeah, under 2.5 goals here. I think it's plus money. I think the odds actually changed slightly due to some big team news here. We're going to have Sesko and Openda suspended for Leipzig. So that's a big goal threat immediately off the field. Under 2.5 goals is at plus money still. That's at plus 110. I would take this at anything evens or more because Bochum have won 2 of their last 3 games 2-0 against St. Pauli and Heidenheim. This is going to be tougher, but it's quite clear what their MO is going to be. In the last 4 or 5 games, they've been low scoring. They're definitely showing more defensive discipline, basically. So I think even if Leipzig do get the result, I don't think it will be a big win for them. And at the minute, I think the unders are a good shout for Bochum, who are defending a lot better. And this is maybe, again, just like I said with Holstein Kiel, maybe a favourable time to face RB Leipzig.
Let's get some thoughts on the French football on Saturday. We've got Steve's hot dog to come. It's in the Lyon-Toulouse game, which is 3:05 Eastern on Saturday. So it's the main game Saturday night in France. Lyon are plus 132, Toulouse plus 335. Just a quick word, James, on that Coupe de France defeat that Lyon suffered to a fifth-tier side. I mean, how much of a shock was that? Do they care? Is there going to be a massive backlash? Just give us a line on that headline-making result for Lyon for the wrong reason.
Well, it was a shock. It was a huge shock. Bourgoin-Jallieu, the team they lost to, 5th division team, as you say. Embarrassing, shameful. These are the words that are knocking around on the back of that defeat. Huge criticism from within the club, from the manager and the technical director about that performance, because it was nowhere near good enough. Lyon named a strong side for the team. It wasn't a case of playing the kids or the reserves. So really humiliating. They wanted to go deep in the competition. Steve said a couple of shows ago about Lyon that it was going to be a difficult month, and he was absolutely right about that. We know that Lyon are in financial trouble and they need to sell players. They've actually done that quite well so far. They've sold a couple of their squad players, but we've still got, 2 weeks of the month to go, and there is some uncertainty within the squad, and the manager has said as much. So massive shock that they lost in the cup. My advice on Lyon, I know Steve's going to come on to his hot dog pick, would be to leave them alone until February, when this window is closed and we know who's left, because there's clearly some uncertainty and nervousness in that squad at the moment.
Let's get on to the hot dog. Lyon were minus 2,000, incidentally, to win. It went to penalties, and Bourgoin-Jallieu won on spot kicks. Natural reaction might be to think there's an upswing from Lyon and they're going to have to try and put something for the supporters to get excited about. But Steve, you think that Lyon, as James just outlined there, might continue on a downward trend to a certain extent? I mean, they could still win this game and your hot dog could cash. Explain it all to us.
Hot dog pick I'm going with is Toulouse on their team total to score over 1.5 goals. Now, at the time of actually recording it, it's actually plus 188 now. So, this is maybe a little bit of a cheat card for me. We know the hot dog needs to be 2-1 or greater, and this has been the case all week. It's literally just come in, and I think unfortunately Bourgoin-Jallieu have not done me a favour here. It was another one of them Coupe de France results. I looked at the result last night, and my eyes nearly came out the back of my head. I just couldn't believe it. I think Lyon are on the verge of being a bit of a laughing stock again in French football this month. There's a massive... the owners getting involved in the war of words again. Everything seems to be in turmoil. Everything is not in a good phase. And James is right. They desperately need this transfer window to end, and then things might settle down again in February. But I was going to be betting against them. As soon as I watched the last week, I cashed with a hot dog with Brest. I was looking for a way to oppose them the next weekend already. And I really hate how they're defending at the moment. I mean, if a fifth-tier amateur side have scored 2 goals against them, it kind of proves the point. I mean, Montpellier should have scored 2 or 3 against them the other week, and they somehow won that game 1-0. Brest, I thought, should have scored more goals as well. Yes, Lyon always retain an offensive threat, but if they win this game, I think it's a shootout. I don't think Lyon aren't the sort of team that are going to win this match 1-0. And I don't think Toulouse are the sort of team that are going to win 1-0 either. I like Toulouse to score over 1.5 team total goals here. They've managed it on 6 occasions this season. They had a 2-0 win at Rennes. They had a 3-0 win at Montpellier. Lyon have conceded 2 or more times on 10 occasions in all competitions this particular season. So they got this soft underbelly defensively. They're in a mess. They might feel their only way out of it is to basically score their way out of it. If this ended something like 4-3 or 3-2 to Lyon, I wouldn't actually be totally shocked, because I don't trust the Toulouse defence either, by the way. But I do think the visitors are a huge price just to score 2 or more goals. And I'm hoping to continue my hot dog streak, this would be a 4th straight hot dog winner for me. And I'm very, very happy to be opposing this Lyon defence, which I would fancy playing against right now.
Yeah, the dog daddy's flying at the moment for someone who owns cats. That's a little bit counterintuitive. Anyway, that's the hot dog from Steve. Team total Toulouse over 1.5 at 2-1. And we've got some French leans as well on Saturday. Steve's got a couple, Lens against Paris Saint-Germain and Rennes against Brest. But before we get that, just James on Paris Saint-Germain. They are top of Ligue at the moment, top by 7. But they've got City at home in the Champions League, of course, next week. And if they lose, it is possible. I mean, it's unlikely, but teams above them, if they all win, they could get knocked out. I mean, their focus has to be on next week, doesn't it, I guess? Is the word from the capital heavy rotation from Luis Enrique ahead of their game against Lyon?
Well, we could well see that. And I was surprised, actually, that PSG went quite strong in the French Cup this week. They were away to amateur opponents like Lyon, where there was some rotation in that game, but not a massive amount. So you've got to think there will be some this weekend, because that game against City is absolutely huge for PSG. And obviously it's about the qualification more than anything else, but it's also a credibility issue because they've been so poor in the Champions League this season. It's a massive underachievement in terms of points total and how they've played. So there is, huge focus already on that game against City. And will they write off the league game this weekend? I wouldn't say they'll write it off, but I would be really surprised if they went strong or super strong with their team lineup, because what a risk they would be taking to do that when, as you say, they've got this great big points cushion at the top of the table. So, we mentioned at the top of the show rotation this weekend. This would be one of the games on my list to maybe wait for team news and just see how strong all week Paris Saint-Germain are.
A couple of leans then from Steve in this one. One on that game against Lens for the champions and Rennes against Brest as well. What you got for us, Steve, for these two leans on Saturday?
I'm fading both of the teams that are in Champions League action in midweek. Let's start with PSG, and the angle I'm going to go is Lens draw no bet at plus 210. I think there's a decent chance that PSG's unbeaten record could go here, because they got to be looking ahead to this Man City game. It's a massive fixture. PSG have one aim every season, that's to win the Champions League. So it's a case where, I mean, they've actually won 5 of the 6 times before a Champions League round this season, but the last time, when things got a bit more serious, they drew against Auxerre. And I think Lens are the sort of team that can beat them. They've got a good tactical manager in Will Still. They miss a lot of chances. They should have knocked PSG out of the Coupe de France recently. I think PSG equalised quite late and then lost on penalties. So already Lens have drawn against them. And I just think it's the sort of match. They've had problems against Lens down the years, haven't they, PSG? It's a tough place to go. The crowd will get right behind them. We've got a manager who's got a decent record against them as well. I certainly think they can keep it close. The double chance on Lens is minus 104. That might actually be a better bet, but I thought plus 210, a bit of pizza money. And I'm calling it here. I think PSG lose their unbeaten record. One thing I will say, I thought they played really well last week, but they've got to rotate surely, and they've got to have an eye on the midweek Champions League.
And in terms of the Rennes-Brest game, how are we fading Brest? Is this simply Rennes on the money line? What's the play here?
Yeah, I mean, part of me doesn't even like this bet because Rennes are only around even money, minus 105, I think it is, minus 109 now. But I've got Brest have a shocking record before Champions League. They've lost 5 out of 6 times. The other one was a draw, which was incidentally the reverse fixture actually against Rennes, 1-1 at home. And I think the reason is Brest are all in for the Cups this season. I think they're all in for the Coupe de France, and I think they're all in for the Champions League. I know they've only got Shakhtar, but that's a really important game for them. Every time they win a game in the Champions League, they get nearly €3 million. And that's really massive for the club. So it's a pure fade of Brest. Simple as that. I don't really rate Rennes at the minute. What's going on there? This squad is in the bottom 5 in the table. I mean, it should be doing way better. They had a change of manager before Christmas. I think James, I'd like interested in James' thoughts actually on this game. Because I wouldn't really trust Rennes, but I've got to fade Brest based on what I've seen this season.
I nearly had it as a lean, and then I chopped it from my lean list because of Rennes, actually. So exactly what you're saying, Steve. But Brest have been so poor in these games, which you can almost forgive, actually. It's their once-in-a-lifetime shot at the Champions League. They've done pretty well in the league games after Champions League matches, but the ones before Champions League matches, when they're already clearly thinking about the upcoming game, it would be harsh to say they've written them off or they've not been motivated, but the results speak for themselves. They've been really poor. And like you, Steve, Rennes are not playing well, and that's a concern, but we know they're good at home They have always had a good home record, so it falls at a nice time for Rennes to be playing Brest. I think the price you'd like a little bit more, but who do I think will win? I think Rennes will probably win this game.
Fading Brest, fading Paris Saint-Germain, 2 lanes for you in France on Saturday. And just to wrap up the Saturday action, we've not mentioned La Liga. Remiss of us not to. James, Barcelona, brilliant win over Real Madrid in the Super Cup. 5 goals in the first half. I mean, they were just unbelievable. Wojciech Szczesny sent off in the second period, didn't matter. But we've seen them slip up this season against Las Palmas, Leganes, Osasuna. They failed to win 3 of 6 ahead of the Champions League, but they are second in the league phase of the Champions League. I mean, they're away at Getafe. They're minus 225. Is there any sort of angle in, any sort of line you want to say about Barcelona? We've got no official picks or even leans, but I just thought we'd mention Barca because people will be looking at them maybe to fade. I don't know.
Yeah, well, Barcelona, there are pros and cons to them. Yeah, there's big reasons why they should win this game, and there's really good reasons why they could win it by a massive margin. I mean, you've just put 5 past Real Madrid, and they've scored 5 again in the cup in midweek as well. So going forward, I mean, at their best, are they the best in Europe going forward? Probably are. You know, you could argue they are. I think Rafinha, when Rafinha is the most the least spoken about of your front 3, Lewandowski and Yamal probably get more attention, don't they? And what a season he's having. So they can be unstoppable on their day. If they won this by 2 or 3 goals, I would not be surprised at all. But you've said it as well, Dan. They are unpredictable. They don't always win. They had a poor spell just before Christmas, and we've seen them drop points against some of the weaker sides in La Liga. In a way, Real Madrid haven't actually. That's where Barcelona, I think, have come unstuck compared to Real Madrid. So I'm leaving this game alone. I think with Barcelona at the moment, you really have to take a watching brief because, as I say, if they drew it and dropped points here in a game they should win, I wouldn't be massively surprised. If they won it 4-0, I wouldn't be surprised either. So when you've got a team like that, it's probably best to leave them alone, I think.
Getafe +1 on the Asian line, +102. But as James points out, they could easily win by a truckload. 51 goals in La Liga this season. Only Bayern in the top 5 leagues have scored more. Sure, shout out to Steve's 1 unit pick in the Bundesliga on Saturday. Sunday session for you from the boys. Not quite as many plays here, but significantly, we have got Steve's 2 unit play and James' hot dog on the same game. And let you into a secret, Steve wanted even more units on this one. It's Saint Etienne against Nantes, 9 a.m. Sunday in France. Saint Etienne are +160. They are favourites. Nantes are +188. So 3 units are riding on Lever here. Who'd have thought this a few months ago? But Steve, with some excellent analysis of the new coach, has got this absolutely spot on over the course of the last few weeks. They owe us nothing, Steve. We go again. What's the 2 unit play?
Straight on the money line here for Saint Etienne. It's at +160 now to beat Nantes. 2 units on this one. Pretty much the same I've said the last 2 weeks applies. Before Eric Horneland came in, I mentioned if they were going to get off to a good start under him, then I wanted part of the action, and so far we've got it. Last week at Paris Saint-Germain, I really enjoyed the attitude they had, actually. I think on another day, PSG could have racked up 4 or 5 goals, to be fair, but they showed real good character, Saint Etienne, gave it a good go. And PSG played really well against them, by the way, actually, I thought as well. So, they're not going to be up against that sort of quality many weeks. And Nantes, I just don't think Nantes are a particularly good side overall. Look, for those who've been following the show regularly know that Saint Etienne are now transformed into much more of a pressing team. I mentioned last week how in the first 30 minutes against Rams, they allowed less than 5 passes per defensive action. They're going to be all over Nantes like a swarm of bees here. A Nantes side that have played 3 games in 9 days. They actually fielded a really strong 11 against Brest in the Cup. I was surprised. But there's a big injury problem for Nantes at the back. Their highly rated youngster, Zeze, I think he's done for the season. Broken ankle. I had a bad ankle injury back end of last year, and it took me 4 or 5 months to recover. He can probably go in ice chambers and things like that, but that's a big loss. He's been one of the bright sparks for Nantes.
That's outside in Harrogate, isn't it? The ice chamber.
It is, yeah, in the frozen north, yeah. That's probably aided my recovery, Dan, to be fair. But, so that's a big loss for Nantes. To be fair, Nantes, they did draw against Lille and Monaco, and not a lot of people saw that coming, but I mean, last week, I don't know how Monaco didn't beat them, to be honest, especially second half. I think in the second half here, the physical aspect could really get at them. St Etienne are going to come. St Etienne have had a whole week to train, by the way. They've not been in cup action. Another week on the training ground for Arik Horneland, and this is really exciting soccer from them right now. I think we'll see a very similar to match to the Rams match, which they won 3-1. And Nantes are never too far away from being in turmoil, are they? I could just... Honestly, if St Etienne racked up a big win here, I wouldn't be shocked. And like you mentioned, I thought about having the hot dog pick and the one unit play on the game. The three-way handicap on on St Etienne did tempt me. I do think there'll be quite a few goals as well. I mean, one area that this system is vulnerable is out wide, and Moses Simon could maybe have some success for Nantes. So I wouldn't be backing St Etienne win to 0, but I actually think 3-1 or 4-1 home win here could be on the cards. And why am I going straight on the money line? Because when you feel like you've got an extra edge and extra value, you've got to stake more. That's what Neil Channing says on the dojo. So we've got to listen to these sort of things. And I think a fair price here is about plus 110. And if this match was being played in 5 or 6 weeks, I reckon St Etienne would be close to even money, because I think they're going to go up in the table, and I think Nantes, I don't think necessarily go down in the table, but they're going to stay where they are. I think they're the better team. So nice spot to get them. 2 units straight on the nose, plus 160. St Etienne win.
You mentioned think there's going to be goals. That runs into to James. Hot dog play, James?
Yeah, hot dog play is on the goal line over 3.25 goals, which is available at plus 220. So fully endorsed.
Just a quick note to Steve. Just a quick note to Steve here. James is sticking to the rules. Continue.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and I should say, for those who would like a safer bet, over 3 goals is available at plus 190, which I wouldn't talk anybody out of, but would not qualify with it for the hot dog. So over 3.25 goals is the pick. Yeah, everything Steve said about St Etienne, I completely agree with. They've been so positive since Horneland came in as the manager. The players have mentioned we're being told and asked to take more risks on the ball. They're clearly getting more players forward when they attack than they did under the last manager. And they are occasionally prepared to leave gaps at the back. I agree about the way they played against PSG last weekend. It was very brave. And here at home to Nantes, which is a winnable game, they're surely just going to go for it. So I can see them attacking strongly from the start, capable of scoring and also conceding goals because of the way they play. And on Nantes, we've actually seen them play in a similar way in recent weeks. I think it's been more by luck than by design in their case. They are defending poorly. They do have, as Steve has mentioned, injuries at the back. And at the moment for Nantes, is their attacking players who are playing well. Moses Simon on the wingers look dangerous. And look out for their young striker, Mathis Abline. Might be worth a look in the anytime goal scorer market. He's looked very sharp for Nantes recently. So, yeah, Nantes' last 4 games against Ligue 1 opposition, both teams to score, yes, has cashed in all 4 of those games. They've averaged 3.5 goals a game in those last 4 matches. I think at the moment, for Nantes to try and get points, they have to be positive in attack because their defence is just not doing its job properly. So, lots of reasons, I think, from both teams why this should be high scoring. Both teams to score, yes, is minus 137. Might be worth a look for people just looking for any pick on this game. But the hot dog pick, I was really confident with this. I think the goal line is slightly wrong because I think people don't really see Nantes as a high scoring team or a team involved in high scoring matches. So take it while you can. I think it might shorten a little bit before kickoff. Over 3.25 goals currently available at plus 220.
Stevie's on same game parlay duty for us this week. 2:45 Sunday, Marseille against Strasbourg. Marseille minus 170. Or is it James on? Sorry, James on.
Yeah.
James on.
You had me then. You had me then.
Sorry, I've got your.
What have you put on me here?
I'm sorry. I've got your name down as SGP. It should be James. James is on same game parlay duty. James, you have got what do you got? 2 elements.
Yeah.
To your pick. This is classic James.
It is classic. Although I think
Steve.
it should be Steve because he started the year in such good form. I think he's going to be the SGP man this year. But yeah, my turn this week. Hoping I get it right because I didn't get it right last time. But I've actually followed your advice as well here, Dan, because you have been saying when we've had our chats before and after shows, keep it simple.
Well, you know that one last week didn't win, but anyway.
Well, true. So I decided to just have two legs to the SGP this week. Keep it nice and simple. So the game is in France. It's Marseille, Strasbourg, which, by the way, should be a fantastic match. These are two really positive sides and doing very interesting things tactically. So I'm expecting an open game. Marseille clear favourites to win it, as you would expect, but Strasbourg go into it in very good form. So the two legs, first one is on over goals, over 1.5 match goals. That's all you need. We often talk about stats betting on this show, Dan. Well, 100% of Marseille's home matches and Strasbourg's away matches this season have had over 1.5 goals. So there's a fair chance, I think, that part of the SGP cashes. And the second part is on corners. Under 9.5 corners is the second pick. Way back in the autumn, I think Steve mentioned to me that Marseille games don't have many corners, and it's been the case most of the season. I think 4 of Marseille's last 5 home matches have had under 9.5 corners, and the same applies to 4 of Strasbourg's last 5 away matches. So not expecting many corners here, even though it should be an entertaining game. They're quite narrow in attack of these two sides. So that's the SGP, quite simple, over 1.5 match goals, under 9.5 corners, and it will pay out for you at minus 120.
Just to wrap up with France, James, you've got to lean in the Angers-Auxerre game.
Yeah, Angers are a team that people won't know a lot about. We barely mentioned them on the side. They're relegation contenders in Ligue 1 this season, but they have improved. They're actually probably the most improved side in Ligue 1 since we resumed after the winter break. So they've won their last 2 matches. I think they were their best 2 performances of the season. They beat Brest 2-0, and then last weekend they won 3-1 away at Montpellier, and they've won in the French Cup in midweek as well. So Angers go into this game in really good form, and Auxerre, who were excellent in the first half of the season, I honestly think they've peaked. We're at the halfway point of the season now. They've got 22 points on the board. I'd be very surprised if they got 22 points in the second half of the season. So Angers Taino bet is my lean here. I don't think the market has quite caught up yet to how well Angers are playing. I wouldn't take them on the money line because it could be a draw, but because of the big prices on Angers at the moment, Taino bet is available at a decent price of minus 129. So just a lean, but at the moment, Angers are definitely a team to be following.
And just to wrap things up with Spain and Real Madrid on Sunday, because they are playing 10:15 a.m. against Las Palmas here, who upset Barcelona earlier this season. And their need, Steve, for Champions League points is a bit more pressing. They do play Salzburg at home. They should win, of course. But although they've been good ahead of Champions League games this season, that approach might not be working in Europe because they are in 20th in the league phase. I mean, Real Madrid off the back, I mean, they must be hurting, I presume, off the back of that Super Cup defeat to Barcelona, being thumped by Barcelona twice now this season. Should we be getting with Las Palmas at all, or is that Salzburg game coming up in Wembley pretty much a gimme anyway for Real Madrid?
Well, I've got to be honest, La Liga at the minute, I'm really struggling with it a bit. I've not got a great feel for the league. This can happen in soccer. I mean, a lot of people watching, you have periods where you're in love with the league and you're not enjoying the league so much. And what's happening with La Liga at the minute is the teams at the bottom are starting to get points. There's no one obviously terrible. The goals are generally down by about 3 or 4 teams. Most of the goals are scored by a certain chunk of teams in the division. I think under 3.5 goals would be something I'd be looking at here because Las Palmas will come to park the bus, I do believe. Keep it tight. And Real Madrid don't really want to be... it's Salzburg. They should win the game, but it's a position where they don't want to take any silly risk in the Champions League. Get your job done. They might be looking ahead a little bit. I think this could be quite a low-tempo sort of affair. Maybe the first half could even be a tie. And then Real Madrid... I mean, Real Madrid are the kings of the late goals, aren't they? It's crazy how that can happen. I'm not saying this will be the case here, but the reverse fixture was a 1-1 draw. And last season, Las Palmas actually played Real Madrid really close twice. So I think they'll maybe believe they can be competitive. I mean, that's a high goal line, 3.5 goal. And even money as well, by the way, for under 3.5. I don't think it's a guarantee that Real Madrid will rock up and win this 4-0.
We'll see. That's Real Madrid, Las Palmas. Just to sort of not even a lean really from Steve, just some thoughts on that game if you are getting involved with the fixture for Carlo Ancelotti's side. Monday night to wrap things up. We've had a bit of success on Monday night soccer. There's usually a Spanish and an Italian game on Monday. We can just round up the weekend with a couple of thoughts from the boys on Como Udinese and Villarreal Mallorca. James, you're going to tackle Como Udinese. Udinese turned into draw specialists recently. Any angle in for bettors for this 2:45 Eastern clash in Serie?
Yeah, interesting game this actually. Como and Udinese have both been quite a fascinating watch this season. There is an angle. I think Como are too short to win the game. They're around even money. They were minus 103 when I looked. I think they might be plus 102 now. So they're around the even money point. And it looks too short to me every which way you look at it, because Como have only won 3 out of 9 at home this season. And Udinese have only lost 4 out of 10 away from home. And actually, if you look at Udinese away from home against bottom half sides, as Como are, they've only lost 1 in 5. So I think there's a pretty good chance Udinese avoid defeat here. So the plays for me would be maybe just go on the tie, because as you say, Udinese have turned into draw specialists. Ties available at around plus 260. Or maybe look at Udinese tie no bet if you're confident that Udinese can maybe get the win. That's available at plus 163. So various things to look at. But the main thrust of it for me would be to avoid Como, because I just think they're too short.
We thought there might have been a bit of regression upwards, Steve, with Real Sociedad's both teams to score no's, but there was not last Monday in their game against Villarreal. Villarreal go against Mallorca here. They're short again. Villarreal here, or short this time. Any sort of line in regarding their game against Mallorca, 3 p.m. Eastern Monday?
It's another mismatch in terms of style. We've got a Villarreal team who want to play football. They want to get involved in shootouts. Mallorca less so. But, I mean, I think Mallorca are not as good as Real Sociedad, so I think Villarreal have got more of a chance this week. I would be looking at the over 2.5 goals at plus money. It's a big price on. I think Villarreal have more over 2.5 goal games at home than any other side. So I think it'd be slightly different dynamics than last Monday. They're on their own patch. Mallorca, by the way, they've lost their last 2 games in the Cup. 3-0 to Real Madrid in the Super Cup, and then 3-0 to a side called Pontevedra. That was very early in January. They were an odds-on favourite in that. So they've not started 2025 very well. And this could be a chance for Villarreal to rebound. I think Villarreal 2-0 or 2-1 or 3-0 could be scorelines worth looking at here.
Yeah, 4th tier side, Pontevedra. We're looking for Villarreal home win on the money line for that one. Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck 2-1 and all. We'll keep everyone updated via our X feeds. That is the Wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European show. We're going to be back next week. Picks, plays, hot dogs, same game parlays. I'll try and remember who's on duty for that one next week. The live show, 11 a.m. Eastern, every midweek. Dan, I guess next week, Steve, we've got Champions League. So, James, you'll be on. Are you on duty next Thursday for Europa League?
I think I am, yes.
Right, yeah. The usual crew for the Champions League action next week. Follow us at Because We Win and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get yourself on the mailing list for the newsletter as well. A lot of content coming your way. As per usual, Australian Open and so on. From all of us for now, though, it is goodbye.